Today, I'm going to be discussing differences of opinion in church safety and security and how should we respond. Now, some of you might have seen this product. We recently released a new deck of conflict de-escalation cards. If you haven't yet seen this deck, I will drop a link below. They are for sale on Amazon, and there's 60 critical thinking drills to test your decision making around conflict de-escalation. And the theme of today's video is that on the Worship Security Academy Facebook page this week, I posted one of the cards and a gentleman responded. I realized he had a very, very difference of opinion than what I had. So I thought it'd be a great video to come and talk about how do we deal with differences of opinion. So I'm going to read the card. I'll tell you what he said. I'll tell you what my response was. And then I'd love to get your views in the comments as to how you would then deal with the incident. So let me start off by reading what the card said. So the card says, a camper is parked in your church parking lot, and a man appears and tells you that the police have said that he's allowed to stay there. You ask him to leave, he refuses, he becomes aggressive when you approach him, and the question is, how will you de-escalate the situation? Now, when I posted that on the Worship Security Academy Facebook page, a man responded and he said, it's very simple, Simon. You call the police and they remove him from the property. And then I played a little bit of devil's advocate with this guy surrounding, well, does it depend what state you're in? Do you need to have signposts in your parking lot for the police to act as your agent to remove the person? You know, do I have to trespass him first? Yada, yada, yada. I was really playing devil's advocate to try and see if I could steer this person anywhere near where I was going. And he kept coming back and eventually said, Simon, it's very simple. You call the police and you ask him to leave. And it was there where I was tricking him a little bit, because I then came and said, well, where is your opportunity to minister to that man? And then he then went silent. So I think here's what I would do in relation to this card. So you've got a camper which is parked in your church parking lot. You want him to leave, or you've asked him to leave because you don't want the camper there. And this is a real life scenario. I should say that this is a real life scenario. A friend of mine here in Minnesota gave me this. You ask him to leave, he's aggressive. Now, what I was trying to steer this person towards is, well, why was he in your parking lot in the first place, living in his camper? Now, there is an American poet called Walt Whitman who died in like 1892, I think it was. And there's a really famous line that he says from one of his poems. And he says, be curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not judgmental. And if any of you are fans of the Ted Lasso series on Apple TV, you might have heard of this poet and this line before, because they use that within the show. Be curious, not judgmental. So I think here's what I would do, perhaps differently than just call the police and ask him to leave, is that I would re-engage, but this time I would bring a cup of tea, be it English, be it a cup of coffee, or some type of food, because we've got someone who's living in their camper in our church parking lot. So I think I would go away, get some type of thing to give them to help them, and then I would go back, offer them that, and then re-engage. And here's what I would say. They were aggressive towards me when we've asked them to leave. So clearly, maybe they've got nowhere else to go, is what it's telling me. So I would apologize for disturbing them and try to engage a conversation. And here's why I would do that. When I wrote my book, 10 Powerful Strategies for Conflict De-Escalation, one of the things I say in my book within de-escalation is that this is not about you, this is about them. It's not about you, it's about them. So don't go into this thinking there's got to be a winner, there's got to be a loser, this person's been aggressive to me. This is our opportunity to minister, and let's try and find out why that person is there. Being curious and not judgmental. So I would disengage, I would re-engage with a cup of coffee, some type of food, and I would start off with, I'm sorry that we started off on the wrong foot. I would love to learn more about you. What brings you here today? Open question. Pause. Listen to their answer. So I would try and find out a way to minister to them, and they're in the church parking lot, and perhaps even say to them, I would love to invite you into the church to learn about our programs or come to one of our services on a Sunday. This way, you're going to really open them up to a conversation to learn what is the root cause of the problem, i.e., why are they sleeping in their camper van in your church parking lot? What has brought them there? So, what the person said on Facebook about calling the police and having the person removed, that isn't wrong. The way I dealt with it isn't right. The question simply is there's different ways to resolve all of these cards. There's different ways to resolve conflict. But what I learned during that exchange this week is, are we open to the possibility of a new way? So I'll ask you that question. Are you open to the possibility of a new way? And I think if we can get to that point when we're dealing with conflict, when we're dealing with differences of opinions, it really allows us to understand the other person's perspective, the other person's narrative, where they're coming from, and perhaps find the common goal, because there is no winner in de-escalation. This is not about us, this is about them, and it really allows us to then go on and resolve these conversations. So if you have a set of these decks, really grateful. If you don't, when you get them, don't forget the ministry in your answers. Like I said, in that example, I think to disengage, try and give the person some type of gift, and understand that what brings them there is a great way to resolve conflict. So that is what I would do. As I start this video, I would love to know what would be your response on listening to the card, listening to what the person on Facebook said, would just call the police and then have them removed. And what about how I responded? Is that something that you might have thought to do? Would you do something differently? I'd love to get your response. But for now, you have a blessed day, and I shall see you soon. Take care, everybody.